with Rico, co-founder and managing partner of FIDO Protocol. Next panelist is Sanctum Venture from Sanctum Venture. Panelists are Magnus Jones, Mudit Dawar, Jacel Acoronto, and James Rowe. I want to be sure that all the names, their surnames, I say correctly. And now, Rico, the word goes to your side.
Hi, I'd like to introduce some of our panelists here today. We have Magnus from Ernst & Young. We have James Rowe from Antoro Capital, LLC. And we have Mudit Dawar from Global Blockchain Organization, GBO. And I'm trying to get Etty on us. She has joined and still waiting for the host. So I think there's some technical issue there. Let me just send her the link to join using the Zoom call. Before that, I think let's continue with the discussion while waiting for her. I think let's start with Magnus. Magnus, would you mind to share with us some of the things that Ernst & Young is doing in the fintech space, and share with us some of your experience working with the regulations around that as well? Thanks.
Sure, happy to. We do a lot of things, obviously, as EY is a large player within the fintech in general, but if we narrow it down to the blockchain DeFi element, we work quite thoroughly with this. We have more than 1,000 consultants who has an in-depth knowledge of this. We have 14 blockchain hubs all over the world, so hence we have great experience for many, many years. So, of course, we've seen there has been a journey where we have had great dialogue, specifically where I am located in the Nordics, with the government, specifically financial supervisory authorities, etc. Remember, say, 3.5 years plus ago, when we first approached them with the client, it was 15 people in the meeting. 10 of them fell asleep. 5 of them, the 5 of the others were trying to understand what this blockchain Bitcoin thing is. So it has evolved since then. Now they have a special task force group on it. It's 7 persons in Norway who has an in-depth knowledge. They know exactly what you're asking for. They ask the right questions. So hence we see a great movement. So yes, there has definitely been great clarity towards this in the last couple of years, but that's down to the fact that we and lots of other stakeholders has invested a lot of time on education towards them, because this is not something that you can expect authorities to have a good overview of out of the blue. It's too many call it shitcoins out there to have a full overview that you cannot demand and request that authorities actually will have an overview, but it's definitely going in the right direction, talking of blockchain cryptos in general, I would say. So we see positive movement towards this. When you go into the DeFi area, that's too young at the moment. So authorities, they have a overview of what's moving, but they don't have the necessary resources to look into it. They have to focus on the ordinary crypto market. So hence, they see what's moving, but they don't have a focus area on it. And hence, that's the reason for why all DeFi projects all over the world are allowed to run without any governments interfering with them at all, in the way that I see it.
Great. Thanks for that, Magnus. We have Cortesiel Cotoro from Union Bank, Philippines. Hi, Ciel.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Do you mind to share with us some of the success where Union Bank has developed fintech in the past, and also which blockchain the Union Bank was testing and collaborated?
Okay. I guess one of the main successes of Union Bank, and so far as developing and really harnessing the value of fintechs, is one of which is the existence of my group. The existence of my group, we're called the Fintech Group, our group was precisely established for that purpose. Our mandate is to explore, assess, and generate all the possible synergies that the bank can have with fintechs. So what do? It ranges from simple referrals to integration of fintech solutions to traditional bank functions like payment, trade finance. One other manifestation of this success is the establishment of our fintech arm, which is the UBX. It's an investment and fintech subsidiary. It's a developer arm of the bank where we are able to explore investments in fintechs that have complementing capabilities. And we are also able to develop and invest more in all of these solutions that are out there from the fintechs. Insofar as blockchain is concerned, we've had a number of projects and initiatives that are specific to exploring its potential. We've had I2I is one of the main successes of the bank. It stemmed from a research and development initiative from the bank that was eventually turned over to our UBX, our developing arm. What it does is that it uses blockchain technology for the remittance payments from within in rural banks, and there's also another part of it. It actually have another initiative which is Send I2I. It's still in its developing stages, but the goal there is to also connect other countries, for example, OFWs or overseas Filipino workers in Singapore. The goal there is to use blockchain technology to enable these overseas workers to send remittances to their family members in the rural banks, which are remote areas within the Philippines. We also have our Bitcoin ATM. This is the use of obviously the Bitcoin platform. This machine enables Union Bank customers to buy and sell Bitcoin using the machine, but obviously the parameter or the control there is that the KYC is based on the KYC that the bank does for its customers. We also have used Hyperledger for our financial supply chain. This facility uses blockchain technology for connecting buyers and sellers and dealers and suppliers. That it enables them to do their sales transactions and even provides financing options to both dealers and suppliers using only one facility. So it's a consolidation of dealer and supplier financing.
Great. So since you guys, your bank has implemented all these systems using a blockchain and fintech, were there any challenges that your bank was facing in terms of the regulations around Bitcoin ATMs and using all these solutions?
I guess the general difficulty or challenge that maybe doesn't only exist in the banking or financial industry, but anywhere where technology or new technology is concerned, it's that there is a tendency for regulators to kind of shoehorn new innovations into existing or traditional concepts insofar as established regulations are concerned. Fortunately, though, on the part of Union Bank, I would like to think that we are at an advantage because our central bank is very progressive in its thinking, and they have recognized this, maybe what you can call a limitation, and they've adopted a forward-thinking approach. One of the main manifestations of this is the test and learn approach, or the regulatory sandbox. What is it? It's mainly a recognition of the limitations that existing laws have. So it entails a continuing collaboration and discussion between the regulators and fintechs.
Right.
in that process, the regulators learn about the technology and the applicants learn about what the regulators are trying to address.
Right. Thanks for that, Seal. James, just share with us, like, from the USA part of things, how's eToro's investment into the fintech, into business, and how did it went so far?
Well, we have a number of areas. So we have, some of our investments are on the broker dealer side, and some of them are on the transfer agent side, because we actually are both a SEC authorized transfer agent, and
Yep.
we are also a fully licensed broker dealer, licensed in all 50 states in the District of Columbia. So we come at it from two different angles. On the transfer agent side, it's a newer operation for us, and we will be running it dual, both implementing a blockchain solution as well as traditional. And you have to do that because the SEC doesn't recognize blockchain right now for anything. So what we're doing is going to run dual systems. And then when they all of a sudden one day get religion, we will have already had it, and we'll already have our historical, and we won't have to back feed or integrate those systems backwards. So we'll just run dual books for a while, but you have to go traditional on the transfer agent side. When it comes to the broker dealer side, a lot of our efforts have been on just the base platform for activities, and it doesn't necessarily imply one particular technology. Our securities platform, offering platform is called Offerboard. It's been around for about 7 years or so, and it's what we use it for is an integrator of other technologies. So lots of API, etc. So in that particular part of our business, we are not a innovator of technology, but actually a user and an implementer of technology. So we get a lot of fintech companies wanting to participate with us, and we have a number of them. I think we have 5 or 6 that we integrate their technologies into our platform, because what we're focused on is connecting investors to projects. So we're about the distribution of securities for the most part, not creating a special technology or implementing a particular technology. We look at all of them as some way to facilitate the business, not create a particular technology.
So how do you find these technologies, being adopting and using them? How do you find them?
Well, I find them great, but adoption is slow, and a lot of it is age. I think a lot of people are resistant to change. That's just a normal human activity or instinct, unless they're forced to do it. I mean, think about what's happened the last 100 days or so. Most people hated video calls. Now it's just par for the course. It's what we do every day. I think there was a lot of miscommunication early on in some of the fintech technologies as well. So as soon as that kind of washes its way through and people start to understand that it's not the evil thing, but that's really the regulators, and I'll give it from a U.S. perspective. The regulators in the U.S. did 2 to 3 years worth of major damage on innovation and implementation of technologies, and they did it from fear, and the way they approach regulation since the 30s. It's kind of been that way. It's wrong until it's proven right, versus other jurisdictions which usually are faster to adopt. The U.S. regulators are very slow to want to grasp technology. They play a lot of lip service to it, and have for the last 2 to 3 years. But you got to remember, for them, change is also difficult. And at the end of the day, it's job preservation.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that, James. Just trying to jump into that question about regulations with Magnus. From EY's point of view, what do you think the present regulations status are? Is it too strict, or is it all regulated from your point of view, Magnus?
Well, at the moment, no, if you look into DeFi, there's no core regulation on that area. So I wouldn't say it's too strict. It's rather, as I mentioned, governments are following it, but they don't have the resources or knowledge in depth now to dig into that and open cases, because they know they will spend years if they dare to open a case on this now. So I think one of the most important things here is rather that the industry itself needs to take action, and they need to understand that, well, decentralized, yes, that's great. And I remember a couple of years, 2.5 years ago, I had a couple of targets coming up to me and say, hey, Magnus, we're going to create this DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. It's totally decentralized. There's no taxes, no regulation. Governments cannot do anything. And I was like, yeah, guys, that's cool, but slow down. Governments are going to regulate this in some kind of way. It's back to the old cliche about, you know, death and taxes. That's the two certain things in life, and governments will tax it, and they will trace it back to the creators of these projects. So I think it's more important that rather that we sort of focus that much on waiting for governments to come up with regulation, which will take years just down to the normal procedures of putting an act into place or having a regulation. I think we need more clarity, more guidance, and then they need more education. So the whole industry needs to take that into consideration, and don't pretend that this is just some kind of a magic financial system that will revolutionize everything and there will be no taxes. So I think that the industry needs to have that in mind and rather facilitate and makes it easier for governments to control this. Because you can say, well, it's open source, the code is out there, but still, whether or not it's a government or if it's the users, the majority of people out there, even though the code is available, they cannot read it and cannot understand it. It's complex products. So I think the industry needs to wake up there and sort of self-regulate themselves, create call it a code of conduct, and I think that's the way to move in the same way as we saw, you know, with Bitcoin and the crypto market in general. At the start, none of the traditional banks liked it because they didn't understand it. Now they understand it a bit more, but they don't like the totally decentralized things like the untraceable coins like Monero, Zcash, Dash, Words, etc. They don't like it at all. And in the same way, governments will not like totally decentralized. So I think we need to wake up and see that it's not going to happen overnight by turning a switch, that everything is going to be decentralized. We need centralized parts of it. I think we will move over to decentralized in the longer term. But in order to make this likable for governments, I think the whole industry needs to realize that and wake up a bit and don't pretend that it's going to turn everything by flipping a switch overnight here.
Great. Thanks for that, Magnus. Mudit, do you mind to tell us more about what the Global Blockchain Organization role is in the blockchain space?
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, everyone. Early morning out here in California. So GBO, basically, to give everyone some context, is an initiative of the Alternative Development Organization, which is based in Oslo. And GBO basically is working to create a global platform for public-private exchange and cooperation in governance of the blockchain technology deployment, education, and best practices. We're a nonprofit organization that brings together governments, policymakers, regulators, corporations, blockchain industry experts, and academic and research entities under the new model of blockchain diplomacy to bring out socio-economic empowerment. So 3 tracks: governance, best practices, and education. Our mission is basically to simplify and enhance the adoption and proper utilization of blockchain technologies through our 3 tracks that I shared. Exactly what Magnus sort of alluded to, where we work with especially policymakers to bring them up to speed, and it's a gradual process. So that's sort of where we stand in our working to create our position in the blockchain space.
Great. In terms of the regulations and code of conducts, global scene, is there any upcoming events or initiatives that GBO is planning?
Yeah, so we actually had a few engagements planned here that are getting pushed out because of the pandemic situation. However, within this year, depending on how the recovery works out within Q3, Q4, we are planning to have a closed door roundtable convening a handful of central bank and additional regulatory body representatives from across the world to discuss sovereign bank digital currencies, as well as a second roundtable that will convene state and local governments, again, from across the world that have been at the forefront of deploying blockchain technologies within various sectors, of course, within their respected domiciles and geographies. We are a new initiative. We were launched last year, late last year in December in Oslo, and then some of you were there within our for our launch event. So we would highly encourage you guys everyone to reach out if interested to get involved.
Great, thanks for that, Mudit. Just the last questions for all. I think we have about a few minutes left. Like, what is your vision of the fintech development in the fintech space, in the blockchain space, especially in the next 5 years? Who want to go first? Magnus, maybe you should go first.
Well, it's hard to predict the future, and specifically within the times we are within now. But as it has been mentioned previously on this event, I think due to the COVID situation, things will move swifter. It's you can call it it's a horrible event, but it has been for the benefit of the technology by itself, i.e. as James mentioned about telcos and everything, that video calls, that suddenly overnight everyone is used to this, and I think we will see a rapid change in that direction. However, I'm not totally convinced that DeFi products will be accepted for that reason by governments by nature, i.e. because at the moment you can dig into whatever conflicts of laws books you can open, and you will not find any specific topic regarding decentralized organizations or products. And hence that's the challenge for governments, because they, as mentioned, there's lots of legal aspects towards this about IP rights and other stuff, but mainly the taxes is the most important things for governments, at least in the days that we live today. So I think it's hard to predict. I think if venture cap and the larger investors are going to use this more widely, because at the moment we're like saying between $700 and $800 million within the DeFi space in general, and that's not much at all. But if that managed to evolve a bit more, we will see, what do we have in the world today? 45, 50 million wallets in general. That's basically nothing if you compare it to the ordinary financial system. So I think it all depends on these factors, whether or not how we will see the fast movement or not. So I don't think I will make a prediction towards a 5-year perspective of where we will be, but I think we're moving in the right direction now, and I think things will happen much swifter than we could anticipate before just previous a year ago. So I think within 5 years a lot will have developed within the system, but as mentioned, it's given that also all the stakeholders in here are realistic towards what kind of products they're offering, and not just trying to pretend that, well, this is something that you cannot regulate and trying to run away with it. We have to comply with the ordinary system in order to move in a direction where we will see at one time we will come to a decentralized point. So that's my prediction.
Thanks, Magnus. What about you, Josil?
Yeah. Maybe in the near future, well, at least to start off, there must be a recognition that regulations really always tend to just catch up with technology or activities within the economy. But it's you start with that recognition, and with that recognition, you also realize that the government has to have a progressive and collaborative approach towards regulation. So with this, it has to be a whole of government approach. It can't be just one regulator always more advanced than the others. So it has to be a whole of government approach so that you also eliminate a defragmented approach towards new technologies or existing technology like blockchain. Only with that can you have a more, I don't know, consistent and a faster approach in developing new regulation to address the existing risks that comes with new technology, but also obviously making it easier for fintechs and other institutions that want to adopt fintech solutions to make it easier for them to actually do business using these new technologies.
Thanks, Seal. Hey, James, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree with Magnus. It's hard to predict the future, but the thing that I think is most important in all of these technologies and efforts, regulatory, et cetera, is really boils down to something called standardization. And once you get standardization, if you look back in history, once you have standardized contracts, standardized activities, if you look at the ISDA agreement, swaps agreement, once they had swap agreement in place, everybody agreed to that language in those contracts, then the market explodes with activity. So to me, all of these efforts have to step back and kind of look and say, how do you create a standardization? We're working on a number of efforts right now behind the scenes that, with various groups for standardization. And once you have that, I think you can really, you'll see advancements go at a much quicker pace. Regulatory, it's still going to be crawling. If you even look at the US system right now on changing, Reg CF, the original Reg CF was created in 2012. They're now just getting around to modifying it, the first true modification. And it's still in the comment period. It'll take 6-8 months just to change it from $1 million to $5 million. So you're not going to see speed in the regulation. Regulation is going to go at its own pace. And remember, government officials have no incentive to move things necessarily faster than they want projects to go. So you're not going to get it there. But to me, it all boils to the future is really based on, can you get things standardized?
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, just add to that I think it's extremely important for governments to create technology neutral laws, i.e. that we don't try to create one law like we did, or a regulation for ICOs, for example. By the time it took to get a proposal for that from the European Commission side, ICOs were dead and we had STOs, and the proposal wasn't going even to cover STOs then. So the world will always develop much faster than the regulation itself. So hence we need to pass the message to the lawmakers and governments that they cannot make technology specific laws. It has to be neutral, and they has to understand what the technology is, and i.e. rather give guidance and supervision rather than, as you said, James, spend 6 to 8 to 12 to 18 months on updating some formality. It's much better to get core guidance, 2 A4 pages. This is how we interpret it from the financial supervisory authority, tax authorities, whatsoever. That's what the world needs, because it's evolving fast, and it's a cliche, but it will go faster and faster. That's for sure.
Thanks, Magnus. And lastly, Mudit, what do you think of the fintech's future in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think I agree with all the panelists. Hard to predict the future. However, I think the coronavirus situation perhaps accelerates a lot of these developments. For example, the U.S. Office of the Comptroller as a currency now has a new chief operating officer who was a chief legal officer at Coinbase before, and now there are suggestions to pass a payment charter which will allow for a federal regulation as compared to state by state regulation, which should again accelerate the regulatory framework here in the U.S. The digital dollar conversation in the Congress has also taken a front seat yet again. And I'm sort of stating that with an asterisk, as well as digital RMB. So all efforts are ongoing, but very fragmented. So I agree with James' thought process or comment about standardization. I think we're still quite far out for that, but moving in that direction nonetheless.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. I think we will look forward to the next session afterwards. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Okay, Jesse, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, for your attention. Thank you for your invitation, and thanks for your engagement on this greatest panel. Our next speaker is here. Just please leave the room. Yes, we'll be online with you as well. And now, Pavel, go ahead. I have to finish my YouTube channel at this moment.